Hey, you guys. Happy to have you back. This is Mrs. Bingham here, and today we are multiplying decimals. Now, yesterday, or maybe before you've watched this video, you have watched, we did a decimal by a whole number. Well, today we're going to do a decimal by a decimal. The great thing about it is if you can multiply a 2-digit number or a 3-digit number times a 2-digit number, you're going to be just fine. The basic steps are exactly the same. So let's do a quick review. So if we have 4 6/10 times 3. So think about what we're going to do. Note, remember, we line it all the way up to the right-hand side. And that way, because it's easier for us to do that algorithm, that pattern that we do. It is not the same as with adding and subtracting. We don't have to line up the place value. So we have 3 times 6 is 18, and 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1 is 13. Now remember, this number right here, this 6, there's one number behind the decimal. So on our answer, we have to bring the decimal over one place, because if there's 1 right here, there has to be one number behind the decimal here. Now that's going to be really important later because you need to pay attention to how many numbers are behind the decimal, because we are going to be fixing that as we go along. So just watch for patterns. Remember, you don't have to understand it on problem 1, but you do need to be looking for what you understand and what you know. If you get to the end of this segment and you're like, I'm not so sure, go back and watch this segment so that you can really pay attention to what you understand. All right, so now we have 75 hundredths multiplied by 2 1/10. Notice everything's to the right. So we're going to take this as a normal multiplication problem. 1 times 5 is 5. Now remember, we start in the ones place, and we have to use the ones place and hit all the other place values on the top number. So 1 times 7 is 7, and 1 times 0 is 0. Now comes my favorite part. X's and O's, they haunt you. Don't forget that place value every single time. X out that 1, put down that 0 as your placeholder. It's very, very important, because now we're moving to the next place. So now we do 2 times 5 is 10. We put down the 0, carry the 1. 2 times 7 is 14, plus 1 is 15. 2 times 0 is 1. 2 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1. All right, so now we are going to add, just like we normally do in normal multiplication. We are going to add through. So we have 5, 7, 5, 1. So 1,575. If you leave it like this, you will be wrong. Now we have to take into consideration these points and these digits and those digits. So right here on this top number, we have 2 numbers behind the decimals. Remember, 2. And down below we have 1. So 2 plus 1 is 3. That magical number of 3 tells us that we have to move this decimal over 3 places. Whoop, there you go. 2 there, 1 there. We have to move it over 3 places. So that our answer is 1.575, or 1 575 hundredths. I want you to think about this for just a minute. When multiplying decimals, what similarities do you see from yesterday? If you weren't here yesterday, then you can't answer this question. But some of the similarities you might see, it's the exact same pattern of multiplying. It's also counting up the numbers behind the decimals. When multiplying decimals, what similarities do you see from basic multiplication? Hopefully you see a lot of similarities. If you ignore those decimals to the very end, every step is going to look exactly the same until the end when we're talking about decimals. So this isn't something new. This isn't something scary. We are just taking something we already understand and we're taking it a step further. So pay attention. If you need to write something down to help you remember, that would be great as well. So we have 3 2/10 times 4/10. Now at the very beginning, we're going to ignore these decimals and pretend they don't exist. So 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12. Very good. My favorite part, X's and O's, they haunt you. Don't forget that place value. Some of you don't need to X out your ones place or this 4 because you can just remember. Some of us, we do that just so it's easier to see where we're going next. Now we're on our zeros. 0 times 2 is 0. 0 times 3 is 0. Just like multiplication, we're going to add them all up. 8, 2, 1. Now we have to look at our decimals. We have one number behind the decimal in this first number and a second, and one behind there. So 1 plus 1, that's right, it's 2. So we have to move our decimal over 2 places and put the decimal there. So 1 and 28 hundredths. All right, we're going to do this next part together. Really what's going to happen is I'm going to show you a problem. You are going to work through that problem on your own. Pause the video, do it, and then turn it back on and see if you get it correct. If not, look carefully and see if you can understand what you are doing wrong. If not, this is a perfect time to contact me or ask for a little bit of help. Here we go. We are going to do 6 problems together today before you do your show what you know. So we have 1 and 5/10 times 3/10. Go ahead and pause the video now. Welcome back. Hopefully you have solved the problem. If you haven't paused and solved the problem, you're not doing yourselves any favor because you need to be able to practice. You want to make sure you can do this. This is a skill that you will use all the time. Multiplication is just huge. All right, so here we go. The answer is 45 hundredths. Now, I'm assuming most of you got 0.45 easily. If you're worried about the decimal, remember there's one decimal here, one decimal here, one number behind the decimal, and one number behind the decimal here. So 1 plus 1 is 2. So we have to make sure we have 2 numbers behind the decimal in our answer. Very good. All right, here's your next problem. 3 and 19 hundredths times 1 and 2/10. Pause the video now. Welcome back. Here we go. Now, let's look at our decimals. We have 1, 2, and 1. So we have 2 on the top and 1 on the bottom. If we put those together, that's right, we're going to have 3. So in our answer, we have to make sure there are 3 numbers behind the decimal. So we have 3 and 828 thousandths. It's very small. Next problem, 6/10 times 9/10. Go ahead and pause the video. All right, your answer is, notice one number behind the decimal, one number behind the decimal, 1 plus 1 is 2. So the answer is 54 hundredths. 1 and 6/10 times 4/10. Pause the video. All right, welcome back. Hope you solved it. The answer is 64 hundredths. Getting close. We're almost done. Hang in there. We have 5 and 1/10 times 8/10 is 4 and 8/10. Last problem. 1 and 2 hundredths times 2 and 3/10. Pause the video. Your answer is 2 and 346 thousandths. Now, this is your show what you know. Complete this problem and turn it in so that I can see how you did. Good luck.